Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that cuts to the very core of what it means to be human love. Not just romantic love, but the love we carry in our friendships, our families, and for ourselves. There's a phrase I've been thinking about: do not love half-lovers. And no, this isn't a phrase about romantic heartbreak. It's a call to courage, a challenge to authenticity, and a rallying cry for wholeheartedness. When we hold back in love, when we offer only pieces of ourselves, it's not because we lack the capacity to love, it's because we're afraid. Fear is the root of half-love. It whispers to us that showing up fully with all our imperfections and vulnerabilities is too risky. It tells us that if we expose our truest selves, we might be rejected, misunderstood, or hurt. And so instead of stepping into the light of wholehearted love, we hide in the shadows of what feels safe. But here's the paradox: the safety of half-love is an illusion. By holding back, we're not protecting ourselves from pain, we're guaranteeing it. Love that is given or received halfway creates a hollow space in our heart's sense of incompleteness. We might convince ourselves that we're avoiding the risk of rejection, but what we're really doing is rejecting the chance to experience the fullness of connection. The truth is, love, real, deep, transformative love, is an act of bravery. It's about standing in the arena of life, knowing full well that you might fall, and still choosing to show up. It's saying, here I am, flaws and all. This is my heart, my truth, my essence. That kind of vulnerability is scary, yes, but it's also where the magic happens. It's where intimacy is born, where trust is built, and where connection becomes a lifeline instead of a transaction. When we let fear guide our actions, we end up wearing masks and building walls. We give parts of ourselves that feel safe to share, but hold back the messy, unpolished, and deeply human parts that make us who we are. We keep relationships at arm's length, hoping that doing so will shield us from pain. But the walls we build to protect ourselves become prisons, keeping us from the very love and connection we crave. Stepping into full love requires us to face our fears head-on. It means acknowledging that pain is a possibility, but choosing love anyway. It's about understanding that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward, despite it. When we do, we allow ourselves the chance to experience something profound, a connection that's not rooted in perfection or pretense, but in authenticity and truth. Fear will always try to convince us to play it safe, to give just enough but never too much. But if we let fear dictate how we love, we'll never know the depth, beauty, and transformative power of giving our whole hearts. Love isn't about guarantees, it's about the courage to embrace uncertainty and show up anyway. That's the kind of love worth fighting for. That's the kind of love worth living for. When we engage in half-love, we deprive ourselves of the deep, meaningful connections that make life rich and fulfilling. Connection isn't just about proximity or the exchange of words, it's about being truly seen and heard, about creating a space where two people can show up as their authentic selves without fear or pretense. Half-love, however, creates a barrier to this kind of connection. It's like knocking on a door but never stepping inside. When we hold back pieces of ourselves in relationships, we prevent the other person from knowing who we truly are. We offer fragments, maybe the polished version of ourselves, or the parts we think are easier to accept but not the full picture. And in doing so, we send an unspoken message: I don't trust you enough to see all of me. This lack of trust becomes a wall, keeping us at a safe distance but also preventing intimacy from growing. Similarly, when we accept half-love from others, we settle for connections that are shallow and incomplete. We might convince ourselves that something is better than nothing, but deep down, we know we're missing out on the depth of relationship we truly desire. Half-love leaves us yearning for more, stuck in a liminal space where we're close enough to feel the potential for connection, but too far to grasp it fully. It's a kind of emotional purgatory, neither fully alone, nor fully alone, nor fully embraced. True connection requires mutual vulnerability. It asks both people to take off their masks and step into the unknown together, but vulnerability can feel like a risk, and half-love often stems from the fear of taking that leap. We might fear rejection, judgment, or the possibility that the other person won't meet us where we are. And so we hold back, we offer only what feels safe, and in doing so, we limit the potential of the relationship. The irony is that by trying to protect ourselves, we end up causing the very pain we're trying to avoid. Half-love creates distance. It breeds misunderstandings, unmet expectations, and a sense of being alone even in the presence of another. It denies us the beauty of being fully known and loved for who we are, imperfections and all. When we choose to engage in wholehearted love, we open ourselves to the true gift of connection. We create a space where both people can feel safe to be themselves, to share their fears, dreams, and insecurities. This kind of connection is transformative. It fills the soul in a way that no half measure ever could. It reminds us that we are not alone, that we are worthy of love, and that we are stronger together than apart. Half love may feel easier or safer in the short term, but it comes at the cost of the deep, meaningful bonds that give life its richness. True connection requires courage, authenticity, and a willingness to show up fully. Anything less leaves us on the outside, longing for a closeness we can only achieve by giving and receiving love with our whole hearts. Half lovers don't exist in a vacuum. They are a reflection of the lives they lead, lives lived halfway, where authenticity and courage are eclipsed by hesitation and fear. When someone approaches love with only part of themselves, it often mirrors the way they navigate their existence. A half-life is one where dreams are deferred, emotions are suppressed, and the fullness of living is exchanged for comfort zones and self-imposed limitations. A person living a half-life might shy away from the difficult but meaningful work of self-discovery. They might avoid asking the hard questions, what do I really want? What am I afraid of? What does my heart truly long for? These questions demand vulnerability and introspection, but for someone leading a half-life, these are paths often left unexplored. Without this self-awareness, their capacity to engage deeply in love is diminished. They can only give what they know of themselves, and if they only know fragments, fragments are all they can offer. Half-lives are often the result of fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of standing out or being seen. This fear seeps into every aspect of their existence, shaping their relationships, careers, and passions. Instead of taking risks or embracing the messiness of life, they opt for safety and predictability. They might settle for jobs that don't fulfill them, friendships that lack depth, or routines that leave little room for growth. Over time, this pattern of just enough becomes their norm, and it inevitably spills into how they love. In relationships, half-lovers often struggle to show up fully. They may hold back their true feelings, avoid difficult conversations, or keep one foot out the door, just in case. They might love conditionally, offering affection and attention only when it feels safe or convenient. This isn't necessarily out of malice, it's often a defense mechanism, born from their own unresolved wounds and insecurities. But the impact is the same. Their inability to engage wholeheartedly leaves their partners feeling unseen, unsupported, and unfulfilled. The tragedy of half-lives and half-lovers is that they miss out on the richness of what life and love have to offer. Living fully requires stepping into discomfort, embracing uncertainty, and taking risks. It means pursuing passions that might fail, building relationships that might hurt, and daring to dream big, even when the odds seem stacked against you. A full life is messy and unpredictable, but it's also vibrant, meaningful, and deeply rewarding. For a half-lover to transform, they must first confront the ways in which they're living a half-life. This requires the courage to break free from old patterns, to heal past wounds, and to step into the unknown. It means taking the time to understand themselves, to nurture their dreams, and to engage with the world around them in a more intentional and wholehearted way. Only then can they show up fully in their relationships, ready to give and receive love with openness and authenticity. The journey from a half-life to a full one isn't easy, but it's worth it. It's a path of growth, self-discovery, and transformation. And as they begin to live fully, half-lovers discover something profound the more they invest in their own lives, the more they have to offer others. Wholehearted love becomes possible only when it's rooted in a life that's fully lived. Anything less is just a shadow of what could be. Half-love teaches us, sometimes harshly, the lessons we learn about our own worth. It whispers to us that we are only worthy of scraps of love that is conditional, incomplete, or given only when convenient. When we accept half-love, we begin to internalize the message that this is all we deserve. We start to believe that giving our whole selves, or asking for the depth of love we truly want, is either unnecessary or unattainable. Over time, this belief becomes ingrained in our psyche, shaping how we view ourselves and ultimately how we allow others to treat us. We might tell ourselves that half love is better than no love at all. We might justify accepting less than we know we deserve because we fear the emptiness that might come from walking away. But here's the painful truth: when we settle for half love, we're teaching ourselves that we are not worthy of the full, unconditional, wholehearted love that every human being deserves. We're teaching ourselves that our needs, our desires, and our hearts are not worth the effort it takes to love them fully. When we accept half love, we also accept a diminished version of ourselves. We allow our self-worth to be measured by the scraps someone else is willing to give. We start to settle for relationships that don't nurture our growth or meet our emotional needs. We might convince ourselves that love is something that must be earned, that if we only do more, change more, or become more, we'll finally be worthy of the love we crave. But love isn't a commodity to be earned, it's a gift to be freely given and received. When we're stuck in the cycle of half love, we forget this truth and instead begin to overwork, overextend, and overcompensate for something that isn't even whole. Half love also teaches us to tolerate emotional neglect, to shrink ourselves in order to fit into relationships where we are only given partial affection or attention. It teaches us to accept emotional breadcrumbs, to convince ourselves that it's enough because it's all we're getting. And over time, this lesson can have devastating consequences. It erodes our self-esteem and our belief that we are worthy of love that is abundant, consistent, and nurturing. It convinces us that we should be grateful for any love at all, even if it leaves us feeling empty, lonely, or unappreciated. But here's the liberating truth: when we step away from half love, we begin to teach ourselves a new lesson. We begin to understand that we deserve to be loved in a way that fills us up, not drains us. We deserve to be seen for who we are, flaws and all, and to have our hearts treated with care and respect. We are worthy of love that doesn't require us to sacrifice our own needs or identity. The love we deserve is one that encourages our growth, that accepts us fully, and that creates a space for us to thrive. Learning what we deserve begins with unlearning the beliefs that tell us we are only worthy of less. It requires us to set boundaries, to walk away from relationships that don't honor our worth, and to open ourselves to the possibility of receiving the kind of love that nourishes us completely. This doesn't mean love is always easy or without challenge, but it means that love will be whole, mutual, kind, and enduring. When we embrace the truth of our worth and stop accepting anything less, we start to attract relationships that reflect this. We open ourselves to love that matches the depth of who we are and who we are becoming. And as we do, we teach ourselves and others how to love with full hearts, unafraid to offer all that we are, because we know we are worthy of it. This is the lesson that half love can ultimately teach us: not what we're willing to tolerate, but what we are truly deserving of. And when we learn this, we stop settling for less and start demanding for ourselves and others nothing less than the love that reflects our full value. Wholehearted love, the kind of love that is deep, fulfilling, and transformative, doesn't begin with someone else, it begins with ourselves. It starts with the messy, sometimes uncomfortable process of learning to love who we are, just as we are, without the need for validation, approval, or perfection. Self-love is not a one-time act or a quick fix. It is a journey, a practice, and a daily commitment to embracing all that we are, the parts we celebrate and the parts we try to hide. It is the foundation upon which all other forms of love must be built. Self-love is not about narcissism or self-centeredness. It's not about thinking we are better than others, but about recognizing our own worth and treating ourselves with the same kindness, compassion, and respect we would offer to a loved one. When we love ourselves wholeheartedly, we stop seeking validation from external sources. We begin to recognize that our value is inherent, not conditional. We are worthy of love because we exist, not because of what we do, what we have, or how we perform. This understanding is not only freeing, but it also enables us to give and receive love more fully and authentically in all our relationships. Self-love begins with acceptance. It's about acknowledging and embracing who we are, with all our strengths and flaws, quirks and contradictions. Often we hold ourselves to impossible standards, believing we need to be perfect, to always have it all together, or to live up to some idealized version of ourselves. But real self-love is rooted in the understanding that perfection is an illusion, and our true beauty lies in our authenticity. It's about showing ourselves the grace we so often extend to others, recognizing that we are worthy of compassion, even on our toughest days. Self-love also involves setting boundaries. When we love ourselves, we no longer tolerate treatment that diminishes our value. We learn to say no when something doesn't align with our values, our well-being, or our needs. We stop sacrificing our peace for the comfort of others because we recognize that we deserve respect, kindness, and care not just from others, but from ourselves. Boundaries are a form of self-respect, and they help to protect our energy, our time, and our emotional health. Without them, we end up depleted and resentful, giving away pieces of ourselves to others while neglecting the parts that need attention and nurture. In practicing self-love, we also recognize the importance of self-forgiveness. Too often, we hold on to past mistakes or regrets, letting them define us and prevent us from moving forward. Self-love means letting go of the shame and guilt that weigh us down. It's about forgiving ourselves for the things we didn't know or the choices we regret. It's about seeing those moments not as failures, but as opportunities for growth. When we forgive ourselves, we free ourselves from the past, allowing ourselves to step into the future with a heart that is open, unburdened, and ready to love again, both ourselves and others. Wholehearted love isn't just a romantic ideal, it's a state of being that permeates every aspect of our lives. It starts with how we treat ourselves in moments of solitude, and it extends outward to how we show up for others. When we are grounded in self-love, we become more resilient in the face of challenges, more generous in our relationships, and more compassionate toward the struggles of others. We don't seek love from others to complete us, because we already know that we are whole. We offer love not out of a sense of lack, but from the fullness we've cultivated within ourselves. Self-love also opens the door to self-growth. It's not about staying stagnant or complacent, but about continually evolving into the best version of ourselves. It's about being curious, learning from our experiences, and striving to be better without the harsh self-criticism that often accompanies self-improvement. When we love ourselves, we give ourselves permission to grow, to make mistakes, and to try again. We don't need to be perfect, we just need to be real. When we love ourselves, we set the standard for how others can love us. We don't settle for relationships that drain us, diminish our worth, or demand we compromise who we are. We recognize that love, in its truest form, is mutual and nourishing. It requires that we show up as our whole selves and that we invite others to do the same. Wholehearted love is a reciprocal exchange. It is the love we give to ourselves and, in turn, offer to others. The more we cultivate self-love, the more we have to offer. And when we love ourselves fully, we create the space for others to love us in return, without fear, without doubt, and without hesitation. At its core, wholehearted love is about living authentically with courage, compassion, and an open heart. And this kind of love can only come from a place of deep self-acceptance. So if you want to love others fully and completely, the first step is to look inward, to accept and love yourself in all your messy, beautiful humanity. Only then can you give love freely, without conditions, without fear, and with the full, open-hearted joy that comes from knowing you are worthy of it. So let's stop settling for half lovers, half dreams, and half lives. Let's be brave enough to love and be loved fully. It's not easy, trust me, I know. But the alternative, a life of what-ifs, maybes, and almosts. Let's choose to build bridges instead of walls, to live boldly instead of cautiously, and to love with everything we've got. Because anything less than full-hearted love isn't really love at all. It's fear wearing a mask. Thank you